that he will bring a word that will not only change the lives here, but God, that will change the lives of those who will be watching by video, the internet, and television. So, Father, we just pray your blessing upon him. Use your servant tonight, Lord.
That's an anointing. That's an anointing. Wow, I just feel very loud right now, so let's see if it goes down a little. What you uttered, what God put in us, and I see here written the first thing, singular focus on Jesus. Singular focus on Jesus. I will pour out my spirit on all people. And we're singing, open the floodgates of heaven. Whoa. When does that happen? In the last days. In the last days. So I come up to you here, a servant, humble, knowing that God has done a mighty work in me to get me to talk about this subject in a way that he has. It's been a lifelong journey. I'll tell you that right now. And Terry mentioned something last week, and it reminded me of that whole journey. So Terry, would you come up and just share your testimony just one more time? We don't think about what Terry's going to talk to you about is really a testimony, but it really is. It's a testimony about the goodness of the Lord. So I'm going to stand next to you.
I'm using your mic.
All right.
Okay. Well, last week I told you that we were able to sell our house. Now, I've been carrying 2 mortgages for 3 years because the housing market, as you all know, just kind of plummeted. And right in the midst of when CNN was saying the world was ending financially, we bought a brand new house in January of 2009, which is, in some ways was not the time to buy a house, but we did. And we tried to sell the house, the older house, at that time, and it was just, the market was so bad, it'd be like throwing it away. So we rented it for a little bit. That didn't work out really either. The house was destroyed. So we had to basically new roof, new air, new carpet, all new paint, fix the just everything. And we dumped quite a bit of money into it. And we said, you know what? We think it's time to sell. And the realtor said, you know, the market is still tough. And we said, well, we realize that, and we've been paying a double mortgage anyway, so we can wait. And she said, the best would be 90 days. The best would be 90 days. Well, we sold it in less than a week. The first
Praise
person
God.
that looked at it made an offer, but they didn't want to give us the asking price. The second person came in, didn't get a chance to make an offer because the third one came in and said, I'll just give you exactly what you're asking for it. We're good now, and put down a big chunk of money. Now, with that, we were able to pay off all the other bills and all those type of things. No car payments, no credit card, no this, no that. And what the Lord has been speaking to my wife and I is, you're not in that financial situation just so you can go out and buy some more toys. But that money's to go to missions. And I'm going back to Haiti. That money is to go to the things that I'm going to show you. So what we've told the Lord is, would you honor if we kept paying that second mortgage into missions, into community? Because in the meantime, He took care of so many things in our business that we really didn't need the money from the second mortgage. Now,
That's God.
it took a while to
That's
get
God.
there, but I can tell you through all those times when CNN and everybody said the world is ending, we kept being faithful to God. And there were some times it was very, very tight, but we said we're not going to be deterred. And one moment of favor, that's all it took. One moment of favor, and everything we'd been working for years just went boom, 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 boom. So I just encourage you, whatever the Lord asks you to be faithful in, be faithful.
Wow, wow. When I think about the Lord and his goodness when it comes to money, that we could sit there here in this warehouse and do what we've done. But there's a backdrop story to what Terry just told you. For 3 years, they carried a double mortgage. For 3 years, they had enough money. God provided. We're thinking about, wow, he sold the house. That's good work. But for 3 years, God still provided. He was faithful. And that's the one thing that we can count on our God is faithful. If you ask me what God is that nobody else is, he's faithful. He's true to his word. He's true to his word. And he's true to us. He said he would save us, and he has saved us. So that's where it comes down to. Now, there's a couple of areas I'm going to touch on right now that gets me to squirm. And it might get you to squirm a little too. And that's food and money. Both of those we have to talk about, eat, dream, and sleep about every day. Now, I could stand to lose a couple of pounds. That's why I'm wearing a suit tonight. So you can't really see that. But I have to worry about that every day. And I can tell you that I had to worry about money every day. But God, I've given that to God and been obedient in that area. And that is what we're going to talk about tonight, is how that happens. We don't like to talk about these subjects very often because they're in our control, but they're not. They're really in his control. And so that's what we're looking about. I will tell you that last Christmas, I was 20 pounds lighter because I wasn't thinking about what I was eating. And Jim had a couple of good meals. All of a sudden, I'm not blaming you, Jim. It was a lot more sweets than that. But that was part of it, right? Not paying attention to it, and all of a sudden you're off track. And now you're trying to get back on track. And it's the same way with money. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know what? We know Christmas is coming. It's going to be here December 25th. Yes, it is April right now, but it's going to be here December 25th. And we're going to say, oh my, I've got an emergency. No, you just didn't plan, is what it comes down to. And so that's what it comes down to, is a fruit of the Spirit, is how we manage our money. And that's the last one, the one we don't like to talk about a lot, self-control. Self-control in food for me, self-control in money for me, self-control in food for you and money for you as well. So that's where it's at. It's a fruit of the Spirit, right? We don't like to talk about it that way. We like to remember what really is going on and that it's our money. It really is. That's how we like to think about it. We have to remember that God is in control and that he has purposes for us and for how we do this. And really, think about it. We've talked a lot about books, CDs. These are tools for his purpose. God said what at the end? He said, go make disciples. He didn't say go save them. He said, go make disciples. Disciples isn't hard. Disciples might mean I might have to dig in my pocket and hand a couple of dollars to the person next to me, right? Disciples means that I have to look out for my brother and that I have to be accountable to him. That's what go make disciples is. One of my favorite stories in the Bible, and for a long time it was because the Lord had revealed to me about the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman, and how God just caught her up and took her to the next level. And I thought about that, and I just said, Lord, just make me like that, because I'm the kind of guy that if you allow me to go run through a brick wall, I'm going to run through a brick wall for you. That's just the kind of person I am. I want to get there, and I want to get there as fast as possible, and if that means going through a brick wall, then that's what we're going to do. And then the Lord revealed to me, it wasn't about how I treated that woman. It was about what she did in response to how I treated her. He revealed that she ran back to the town. That's right, the town that wouldn't let her draw water at the same time they did. The town that despised her because she had 5 husbands, and now she was living with the 6th. The town that did not want to have anything to do with her. And what does she do? She says, come on, guys, come see this guy who told me my whole life. I want you to be saved like I'm saved. He gave me living water. That's what all this finance stuff is about. Don't lose your focus. Don't lose the purpose of God in managing your money. It was all about bringing people to the foot of Jesus and letting him work on their hearts. That's all he asked us to do. He didn't ask us to do any more. He doesn't require any less. But it has to be done, and we have to do it, and we've got tools to do it. It takes money for tools. It's okay, because we can dig in our pockets and pull some of that money when we have extra. I would tell you, Terry, that you are freer today than you were a couple of weeks ago because that mortgage is gone. I would tell you that that's going to happen when you get rid of your debt. Why do I know this? Because I was there. I was there. And I will tell you that as we started our life together, my beautiful wife, Chris, and I, 25 years ago, it was all about what we earned. It was ours. We earned it. It was our paycheck. It went into our bank account. And we lived that way for about a year. We didn't tithe during that year. I would tell you that I can go back to when my parents taught me how to tithe. I would get $10 for my birthday. I would give $1 to church. It wasn't a problem. $100 for graduation, $10 to church. That was a little harder, but I still could do it. But when it started becoming thousands, it became harder to give hundreds away. It really did. And then I found out we had some credit card debt. Now, I will tell you that my wife really thought I was going to hit the ground, and it wasn't because of the Holy Spirit. It was because of high blood pressure. But that's the way it was. We did run up some debt, and not only some debt, we then had to buy another car, and we had to get a mortgage. And I started to think, what does God say about this? Proverbs 22:7. A borrower is a slave to a lender. You don't think you're a slave? If you have some debt, it's hanging out in the back of your mind. How am I going to pay this off? How am I going to be able to? Do I have to have my job for the next day? And you know how I know that? God is good. About 15 months ago, He allowed us to pay off our mortgage. We are truly debt-free. I can tell you there are some in this room that are debt-free here today, and they know what that freedom is. We talk about freedom in the Lord, but I'll tell you, there's nothing better than not being a slave to that borrower. There is nothing like it. To be able to have somebody come up to you and say, you know what, we really need some money for ministry. And you say, you know what, let me go get my checkbook. I'll write you a check right now. And you know what the other thing is? You put another 0 at the end. Where I used to give $10, I give $100. And why is that? Because God has allowed me to do that. It wasn't always that way. I told you that we had some credit card debt. Just paying off those credit cards became my singular focus. Now, I was a Christian at this time. I knew what giving to the Lord was about, and I had ran away from it. And I would tell you that those were the toughest times. And then an evangelist came to our church. That's right, I said an evangelist. It wasn't a money guy. It was an evangelist. He came to bring the word. And he used Malachi 3, verse 10. Oh, you didn't think you were used tonight, huh? Malachi 3, verse 10, but I dare you to go back to 3, verse 8. 3, verse 8 is where God gets real with us. Well, he gets real with the children of Israel very quickly. I'll give you a second or two to get there. It's not fun, but it is his word, and he is true to his word, and he's never changing. And it says, "Why have you robbed me?" Wait a minute, I didn't rob you. It was mine. I earned it. No, it's all his. He just told us to be obedient and give him 10% back. It's all his. Why have you robbed me? Then he says, bring 10% into the storehouse. Oh, and you'll see the floodgates open of heaven. I will tell you, seeing the floodgates open is pretty amazing. It is amazing, amazing. It's more amazing than you can ever ask for. He says in Ephesians 3, verse 20, more. That's the one word that comes to mind right now. More. More than you can ask or imagine. That's what he's willing to give us. Now, yes, he says bring in the tithe, and some people say in the Old Testament, that's the Old Testament, we're in the New Testament. Well, Jim read about the New Testament this tonight, and it was God loves a cheerful giver. And, you know, a cheerful giver gives how much? Probably more than 10%. Probably more than 20%. Probably more than we could ever think about, more than we could ask or imagine. They're just obedient because they want to be cheerful, because God has put a joy in them, the joy of their salvation, that they just can't escape. Their whole life is turned around. Freedom in the Lord means something totally different to them at this point. And we operate under the thinking that we earned it, it's ours. He has the cattle on 1,000 hills, but we earned it, it's ours. All he says is, give me some of it back and be cheerful about it, right? But we earned it, it's ours. That isn't going to work. It's never going to work. There's a book that came out this week. Give and Take is what it's called. It's by a Wharton professor, and I meant to bring it tonight. I'll bring it next week. I'll hold it up so you can see it on the camera as well. But in that book, it says that the Wharton professor interviewed most of the executives of corporations and found out that there are givers, there are takers, and there are neutral people. And the most successful are the givers, the ones that give their thoughts away, the ones that are generous to people. The business world's figuring out what God told us 2,000 years ago, and we're not doing it. We need to do it. We need to do it because God told us to, but we need to do it because we need to be a light in the darkness. More than anything, we need to be that light in the darkness. And that's what it's all about. That's truly what it's all about. Darkness can never overcome light. You stick a light in a room, I don't care how big it is or how small it is, and we will look at it. We will absolutely look at it. Why? Because we're attracted to light. We're not attracted to darkness. We stumble around in the darkness. We're attracted to light. And that's what we want to be. And if we start to do what God's told us to do, if we're obedient, He is faithful. He is faithful. And I will tell you, of all the acronyms we can give God, I focus on the faithful because He's given me a lot of promises. I've screwed up a lot of times, messed up more times than I would ever want to think about. but he is faithful. And his blood covers all my sins. And thank God for that. Thank God for that. I think about all of our different purchases over time that required a loan or a mortgage. The first house, 3, 4 cars. Oh, then we needed a bigger house because God wants to use us. Then our church wanted a building. Well, let's go get a mortgage, right? But what was the first proverb? Proverbs 22:7. A borrower is a slave to the lender. This warehouse you're sitting in, paid off. No mortgage, never was. Built debt-free. Do you think we worry about anything if everything's debt-free? No. What can we do? Well, we can go have a block party, right? We can take CDs wherever we need to. We can send out envelopes to churches and invite them to come here to find out more about God. We can go out to the community and bring them the love of Jesus. We can sit down with them at a Dunkin' Donuts or a Starbucks, wherever your favorite coffee place is, and just talk to them and find out what the Lord is doing in their life. Or maybe what they need to hear what the Lord's doing in our life. We can be a comfort to them. That's what being debt-free puts us in the place of. That's where the freedom comes from. Somebody needs a meal? Okay, that's easy to do now. It wasn't so easy back when my wife was worried about whether she was going to have enough money for milk or for diapers. And that's a testimony in and of itself. So let's go there since it's come to mind. And I would tell you that this is the way she tells it, and she'll probably tell it different next time, but the way she tells it is she was praying to the Lord about whether we should buy milk for our 4-year-old son or whether she should buy diapers. And she needed $4. It wasn't 4-year-olds. See, I messed it up already. Anyhow, we were praying about milk or diapers is what it comes down to. And so she decided on milk. Good thing, because he was hungry. And in that day, the Lord knew and provided for that need and had a $4 rebate check come in the mail. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, $4, but that's where the Lord starts with us. He wants us to be obedient in the little things, and then he brings us the bigger part, right? And if we start out with the little, the $10, $15 a week invested in what his desire is, it then becomes hundreds. It goes through the 25, the 50, the 100, and it becomes thousands a month. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. It's not us keeping it. I'm reminded of the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. So the Sea of Galilee, the water comes in, and it's really a big wide in the river. It's not a sea like you think of it. And then it goes back out, and it goes down to the Dead Sea. There's life in the Sea of Galilee. There's fish in the Sea of Galilee. You've heard about Peter and James and John, the 3 guys being fishermen, right? You go to the Dead Sea, there's nobody fishing on it. There's no life in it. There's a couple of humans down at the beach floating in the water, right? That's it. And they don't stay there all day because they shrivel up because of all the salt in there. It's the lowest part on the earth, the Dead Sea. You can't get any lower than that. It's just amazing how God gives us this analogy. Life, and 3 miles later, nothing. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Nothing can live in there. You see all the salt up on the shores, and that's it. There's no life there. And that's the way it is, because it doesn't give anything out. It just goes there, and it stops. And so all the stuff that came out of the Sea of Galilee goes there, and it stops. All the minerals, there. All the salt, there. It's the saltiest place on earth. How salty, you say? It's 10 times more saltier than the ocean. So the ocean's about 3% salty. The Dead Sea's 33% salty. There's something to be said for not giving away, right? And that's really what that story was about. You get, you give. You get, you give. And the more you get, the more you give. Actually, it works the other way. The more you give, the more you get is really the way it works. So, and that's what it is. A couple other things about money, because that's really what we're talking about, is being God's financial manager. And that is one less than all of Jesus' parables. He told 36 parables, one less. Now, for those of you doing math, that's 17. Half is 18, so one less is 17. 17 of the 36 parables were about money and were about giving. And that's really how Jesus wanted us, how important it was for us to get it. He told us so much. Let's go back to Genesis. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It was all His. He created it and allowed us to take control of it, have dominion on it, right? But it's all His. We just don't get that. We think it becomes ours when we earn it. And it says, by Him, in Colossians 1:16, for by Him all things were created, both in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through Him and for Him. That's the next thought. It's not about us. It never has been. We think it's about us, but it's never about us. It's all about Him. So whatever we have, it's about Him. He gave it to us to begin with, but it's really about Him. I can't tell you how many people, I. No, it's about Him. It's really about Him. Get the focus off of me, and I do it way too many times. I'll tell you, I'm one of those guys that thought about that. That's why I was paying off the debt and not tithing, because I thought it was about me and getting out of debt. And it wasn't about me. It was about Him. And that evangelist came and put the focus where it needed to be, on Him and about winning the souls that have not been told about Jesus, and having His Spirit perform the work that needed to be performed in their lives. I can't even bring somebody I can bring somebody to Christ, but I can't save them. He's got to do that work, right? I'm dead. He makes me alive. And it's all about Him. And I don't know why He's done it for me. I don't know why He's done it for any of you, but He has. Thank God He loved us that much. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him shall be saved. Shall be saved. That's what it's about. It's not about how much I get. It's not about the boat. It's not about the car. It's not about the house. It's not about whatever other thing you might have. It's about Him. And He will hold us accountable for what we've done with our lives. It does say that at the end of time it will happen. Let's see what Solomon says about it in Ecclesiastes 19. The wealthiest man of his day. As for every man to whom God has given riches and wealth, given him power to eat of it and to receive his heritage and to rejoice in his labor, this is a gift of God. Don't forget it. It's a gift of God. You know, we've talked about the Proverbs. Many of them talk about money. Many of them talk about the wise man. And it's always the wise man who is giving. It's always the wise man who kept his focus on Jesus. It's always the wise man being obedient. And we have to be obedient in money. It's the tangible thing. It's tangible. We can touch it with our hands. And I would tell you that one of the toughest things that we have to deal with, and I would ask you to use pure dollars. Don't use the credit card. because it's easy just to say, oh yeah, here's a credit card, swipe, bingo, back in my pocket. Didn't change. It didn't change at all. It's the same card I gave them. They did an electronic swipe, and bingo, I'm out $5, $10, $15, $20, just like that. If I give them $1, if I have to pull it out, and I have to pull $1 out and give it to somebody, I don't have it anymore. It's not in here. It looks different. $2 comes out, now I don't have anything left. We got to go somewhere and get some money. All right? But that's it. I don't have it anymore, right? That's a big thing. Something goes on up here when I don't have pieces of paper that I worked hard for. If I do that with a credit card, I kept them in the other pocket, right? Swipe, does it look any different? Anything happen to it? Makes it real easy to use that way. Real easy to use. I tell you, don't use these if you don't have to. I know they can be convenient, but don't use them if you don't have to. Pay them off at the end of the month. You know why there's banks on every corner here in America? Because of credit cards. More than anything, because of credit cards. And the other thing that we've been sold, that we should go in debt for a house because it's an investment. Right? We talked about the financial meltdown. Who's still looking pretty good? The banks. Who's not? The people who had the mortgages. Right? Got to tell you this story. It goes with the financial meltdown. At the beginning of 2007, remember, America's riding high at that point. And the Lord drops into my spirit. Tell your friend, you're going to pay off your house in the next 5 years. This is 2007. Looks pretty good. Looks like I can do that. And I really felt like we could do that. We'd save up enough money. We'd put our singular focus on paying the mortgage, and it would get paid off. So I told him that. He never really held me accountable, but it was in my mind. Find an accountability partner, especially when it comes to money. Find an accountability partner. Because you'll say something about, I want to get out of debt, and they might not ever say anything like my friend did, but it stuck up here, and I had to be true to my word. God's faithful to me. I want to be faithful when he drops something into my mind. So what happened? We went through 2008, the financial meltdown, and our mortgage got paid off in 4 years. 4 years. That's amazing. Now, we've got a pretty big house, so it was bigger than most. But I would tell you, it doesn't matter how big the house is or how small the house is. It doesn't matter how big your paycheck is or how small it is. It's all about obedience. It's all about obedience. It doesn't change. It's about obedience because God's going to provide it to you. You don't know how he's going to provide it. I certainly didn't know how he's going to provide it. He didn't drop it from heaven. He kept me working at my job day in and day out. Just like Nehemiah. He didn't say, Nehemiah, oh yeah, I'm going to fix that wall for you. No, Nehemiah had to ride 1,000 miles when riding 100 miles was a lot. So he had to go 10 times as far, take him at least a month to get there. And then he had to defend from the enemies who didn't want the wall built. So he had to have a sword in one hand while he's putting bricks on the wall to make the wall. Well, that's the way it's going to be. God didn't say he was just going to drop it from heaven every time we ask. We know that that doesn't happen. Can he do it? Absolutely. I don't doubt that he can do it. My wife is sitting right there as a testimony to the healing power of God. And I know that that can happen. But he is going to test us in our obedience as well. He says, test me in this, and I will open up the floodgates of heaven. That's what he says in Malachi 3, verse 10. But he tests us to make sure that our motives for obedience is pure. And that's why. He wants us to be pure. He wants us to be holy. This is one way to do it. So how do we do it? Well, in the midst of all of this, we went to Israel, didn't we? God is so good. God is so good. So I'm a consultant, and I thought I was going to be out of a job in early 2009. But God had a different plan. He had that money saved up so that we could go to Israel, so I could tell you that Dead Sea story, so that I could live it, so I could tell it. Not only that, at the end of 2011, we sit down with our banker. It's the end of the year. We typically sit down with him. I would tell you that we don't have a lot of money, but we always sit down with him because sometimes he gives us some great advice on what we need to do with our money. And he says, I know you've been saving to pay off the mortgage. You have enough money to do that. And the immediate thoughts in both of our minds was, what are we going to do with no money in the bank? Not, let's go pay off the mortgage. What are we going to do with no money in the bank? God is so faithful. He is so faithful. We did it. We went off pure obedience there. And we have more money in the bank today than we did back then. Before we started, God is so faithful. It's just amazing. It's so amazing at how he does that. I forgot about that too. So God puts it on our hearts in 2010, wasn't it? So it took us four years, 2007 to 2011. He puts it on our hearts to take in another family. This was our youth leader. So let's hear it for youth leaders. They do an amazing job, right? They are making a world of difference with our young people. And God puts it on our heart to take in our youth leader and his family. And we're just obeying at that point. We didn't even think about what it might cost us to have another 4 mouths to feed and everything else that goes with that. But God was faithful in all of that. And he allowed all of that to be used for his glory. And that's what it's all about. It's all about him and him getting glory. And that's what we need to remember. You know, I'm looking for, there it is, Proverbs 6, 1-5, a longer version there. Dear friend, if you have gone into hock with your neighbor or locked yourself into a deal with a stranger, if you impulsively promise the shirt off your back and now find yourself shivering in the cold, how many of us are like that? How many of us are paying monthly credit card bills? That's what that is. The shirt off our back, and we're now shivering in the cold. This is what it says. Friend, don't waste a minute. Get yourselves out of that mess. Don't waste a minute. Get yourself out of that mess. And then I love what it says here. Don't procrastinate. There's no time to lose. And here it is. Remember these animals. Run like a gazelle from the hunter. Fly like a bird from the trapper. That's what we need to do. So think about that. Get a picture of a gazelle or get a picture of a bird. You got to have one of those. Put it up on your bathroom mirror. If you don't have a bathroom mirror, put it in your kitchen somewhere. Okay? And just do that and remember what I read. Get out of hock. Don't have any debt. It's just amazing what God does. I will tell you that there's a man down in Nashville that I haven't met, but I've seen on DVDs. His name is Dave Ramsey. And in America, you can listen to him daily if you want to. You can go to DaveRamsey.com and find a radio station. And he gives about 7 steps to help get you out of debt. And the first one is save $1,000. Now here in America, that doesn't seem like a lot, and maybe where you live, it is a lot, and it's not $1,000, but it's enough of money that if you had an emergency, you would be able to pay for that emergency and not worry about it. Husbands, I tell you right now, If you want a better marriage, save $1,000 as quickly as possible. Because you see, in the female, God has made a security gland. No, it's not there. It's up here. It's in her brain. She needs to be protected. And she expects her husband to be able to do that. And so by having that $1,000, she doesn't worry about that emergency and where they're going to get the money to pay for it. Okay? That is absolutely number one. You do that, it makes a better marriage, but more, it focuses you on getting everything else done. I'm really a rubber meets the road guy, and by what Dave Ramsey has taught, this is the way to get it done. Step number 2. So step number 1, save $1,000. That sounds like a lot, but I'll bet you most people can do that. I guess I can't bet you because I don't bet, but most people can do that within 2 months. Now, by my estimation, that's about $100 a week that you would put aside. $125 if you're tracking it with a calculator. Okay? Starbucks, or as my friend says, $5. You know? That can help get you there. You start making it a singular focus, knowing that you're being obedient to God, and it makes all the difference in the world. You can make it happen. Then, number 2, I'm looking for it. It's not popping up. Pay off your credit cards. I knew it was there. Pay off your credit cards. That's number 2. You're paying somebody almost 20% to use their money. If you pay off your credit cards, you make that a focus, you will get 20% back. We're worried about tithing to God, which is only 10%, and we could find that money within the credit cards. All we have to do is remember that God's in control and don't overspend what we have. There are so many people that have too much month at the end of the paycheck. And it just doesn't need to be. We need to focus on how much we have. Real quick story about when I was growing up. When I was growing up, I was in the inner city of Chicago. I look pretty good today. I don't look like an inner city kid anymore. But I will tell you that we never had any needs that went unmet. I had a lot of wants. I can remember the summer I wanted a new baseball glove. I would go to Kmart every week with my parents, and I would go back to the sporting goods department, and I would look at the gloves, and they were all $20. $20 to me was a lot of money. I didn't have a job. I was only 9 or 10 years old. And I waited, and I waited. My birthday isn't until October, so that didn't help any either. I wasn't getting that glove for my birthday. And I did some grass cutting, and I did some window washing, and I got $15. And then I went to Kmart that next week, and they had marked the glove down to $15. God is so good. But I was faithful, and I was obedient. And I would tell you $1.50 of that, I had to get at least $16.50 because $1.50 of that went to God. That's how I was taught growing up. I sort of lost that when I started to see debt creep in, but God righted that ship. He put me back in the right place again. And that's what it's about. I didn't have a credit card. Nobody bought it for me and said, "Oh, pay me back." It was about working for it, and it took a while. It took a while. And we're afraid of that. I would say the other thing that needs to happen, number 3, if you will, is start tracking what you spend your money on. That's the dreaded B word for those of you who are financially looking at this. It's the budget. Nobody likes a budget. I would tell you the finance guys don't like a budget. But it's a way to get control of your finances. It's a way to keep what you know is the right thing to do in line because you're now checking yourself. It's an accountability method. Now, nobody likes it. Nobody likes accountability. But it has to be done. So we're paying off our credit cards. We now understand our, what we should be spending our money on. We're doing that, and we're paying off our mortgage. Or we've got $1,000 in our bank. The next thing is then go after the bigger ones. The car payment first. It would be better that you had a $1,000 car than a $5,000 car with a $4,000 car payment, car loan. It doesn't help anybody to be in that $5,000 car. And I would tell you that if you took that same money that you would be paying for the $4,000 car loan and put it in the bank, within 10 months, you would have a $2,000 car. And within 10 months again, you would have a $4,000 car. So now within 2 years of stepping up the car, you've got the $5,000 car free and clear. And that works $10,000, $20,000, how much a new car costs. That just works. It's God's way of doing it. It's not our way of thinking in America. It's God's way of thinking. Put the money aside first. I have a young son who's about to get married. And the one thing I've impressed on him is do not go into debt. Put your money in the bank. Do not go into debt. And I would tell you that that's exactly what he's doing. And it's going to pay off for him even faster than it paid off for me because I did go into debt. So now, step number 4 is taking that $1,000 and making it 3 to 6 months worth of income. This is a big step. You don't realize how big that step is until you were like me in 2009 and I thought I was going to lose my job. And I had that money ready to go. We had already 6 months because if I'm going to lose my job, I want to at least have some money to live on. And the fear of losing the job went away. Because we do so many things on fear. I would tell you that just about everything we react to is because of fear. And if you don't really believe me, think about fear every time you react to something. And you'll find out that you fly off the handle because of fear, because you're not in control and because of fear. And that's not how God wants it to be. He's in control. He wants us to trust him. We should be obedient, and we won't have fear. And that's what this is all about, is getting us out of the fear and managing our money appropriately. Then it comes time to invest. We've got almost everything paid off except for the mortgage. It comes time to invest. We have to invest in a couple of things. In America, we like to call it retirement. That time where we're not going to be working anymore at the end of our lives. And then we also have to invest in our kids. That means it's time for us to invest for their education, whether that's high school, whether that's grade school, whether that's college. We need to invest in those things. It's the way God made the family. The family is protected by us as parents investing in our kids, investing for our kids, so that we give them a legacy. 75% of what a child will learn comes from their parents. You don't think you're leaving a legacy? You are, in everything you do, everything you say. 60% of what we communicate is nonverbal. Think about that. That can become scary when you're a parent, having your kid learn 75% of what you learn. So that means, if you do the math, 45% of what your kids learned, you never even said a word to. It was by how you acted and what you did. And did you fly off the handle? And did you give God, were you a cheerful giver for God? That's what it's about. That's what it's about. It makes a big difference when we start to look at it in those ways. You don't believe me, 75% you learn from your parents? Think about if you've had a child, think about the first thing that's happened. Oh, what did my parents do? Right? My future daughter-in-law says, she talks to my son, and it's like she's talking exactly to us. He doesn't even realize that he's already been programmed with our thoughts and actions. Right? That's the way it is. Each one of us is like that. We have to keep that in mind for the good, because if we point them to God, then they're like their Heavenly Father, a good reflection and a brother of Jesus. And that's what we want. So that's what managing your money will do. It leaves a legacy. And then finally, work on that mortgage. It's been proven that if you make that a focus, on average, in 8 years, you will pay off your mortgage. Now, I'd like to say I'm above average. We did it in 4. But you know what? There are some people who take a little longer. But if you think about it, what could you do in 10 years if you paid off a mortgage? Right? That's pretty amazing. I could tell you that a year ago, I didn't even think about supporting a kindergarten in Jerusalem. But that's what God's got us doing. He lays it on our heart, and then we do what we need to do. We're obedient. And so I ask you, if you're in any kind of a debt, or if you want God to show up in your finances, you want to be more obedient, why don't you come up to the front? I want to pray for you. I want you to know that God is in control. That with obedience, He will make all the difference in the world when it comes to that.